Hey guys, Zara here with Minimalist Homeschooling. I want to talk to you today about how to create more of a minimalist culture with your whole family, even if maybe your kids or your husband are not entirely on board with this whole idea of decluttering and purging and living more simply. So I do have a podcast episode on the Simple is the New Smart podcast. I believe it's episode number 42 that has a lot more details about how this works and how this looks. I encourage you to go listen to that if you want more. But today, let's go over 3 quick tips that I think make a huge difference. Number 1, start with your own stuff. And I say this for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you start with your own stuff, you set the example, but also you might inspire others. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I will clean up my room, make it all neat and tidy, make the bed, everything's in its place. And my children will come in and they'll lay on the bed and they'll sort of bask in the pleasantness of a clean and simple space. And oftentimes they'll even say, "Mom, can you help me do this to my room?" Or if I organize my closet really nicely, they'll say, "Mom, can you help me organize my closet?" So setting the example is fantastic. The second reason I say this is because you really have no right to be decluttering other people's things without their consent and approval. So you kind of have to start with your own things. But I also say this because you need to live the experience of decluttering. It's very easy to declutter everyone else's stuff, right? Because it's very easy to judge other people's things as being valuable or not so valuable. However, when you have to go through the process with your own things and you realize you're keeping that silly thing that's sentimental to you from senior year and this, that, or the other, you realize and you gain some understanding and some compassion for others who have to declutter. And you'll realize then when it's their turn to be less judgmental about what they want to keep, because ultimately it's a values thing and you don't get to tell other people what they value. Okay, my second suggestion is to set some boundaries. This can look so different for so many families, but think about what would make the best impact in your home. There are plenty of suggestions, again, in that Simple is the New Smart podcast. And inside the Simple is the New Smart membership, I have a whole tutorial about minimalism with children. And I do have free worksheets available at the zaraphd.com/get-started website, all about getting started with some minimalism in your own home. But my second suggestion is setting those boundaries. They can sound like for every one thing in, one thing out, or one thing in, two things out if you have a particularly overwhelming situation. You can set boundaries that we will only bring, wanted things that are not needed. All of those extras only come in when there's a holiday or a birthday. We're not going to buy them just because. You can also set boundaries like the surfaces in the house need to stay cleared off. And again, these sorts of habits and boundaries, one, they respect sort of our need to have a simplified and clean space, but then they also set up habits that hopefully people, once they live in a simplified or clean space, or hopefully once they realize that they have to keep the surfaces cleared off and find a place for all these things, they're going to be more likely to want less stuff, if that makes sense, right? They get used to this kind of culture and lifestyle of living in a simple space. Okay, my last suggestion is that we have to replace the things for our kids that are entertaining them with something else to entertain them, right? So if we've gotten in the habit, and this is pretty common in America at least, and I'm assuming in other places in the world as well, we tend to give our kids toys to entertain them, and then when those no longer entertain them, we buy them new toys, and when those no longer entertain them, we buy them new toys. And so the problem is now if you start taking away all the toys without an alternative, you're going to create a void where your children don't know how to entertain themselves anymore. They've lost that sort of crutch for entertaining themselves. So before we can even purge with our children, we need to shift our lifestyle towards connection with people instead of stuff. So of course there will always be some toys in your home. There are going to be tried and true favorites that they never get sick of. There are going to be things that you think are really valuable for them. We are going to want our kids to be able to play independently And there are some great imaginary toys out there. I'm not saying you have to get rid of them all, but I'm saying that if you want to minimize them, then we need to replace what our children are doing to entertain themselves with something else. And a lot of times they crave and they are more than willing to shift to connection with people. And so the great thing about decluttering is that hopefully you've opened up some more time in your days. And so you can spend that time connecting with your kids, scheduling play dates, sort of replacing all of the having things with doing things and being with people. So think carefully. If your kids aren't going to have all those toys, what are they going to do with their time? And let's start making that shift before we even declutter a single thing. And with that, I am wishing you all the simple things. Go ahead and leave me a comment with your best tip for minimalizing with the whole family in tow. And I will talk to you soon. Bye now.